The rest of that white wine's for drinking, is it?
That's for you, Peter. That's for you.
I'm not ordinary.
Hello and welcome to The Good Life. I'm Gwen Wilson.
And I'm Pete Gatwood, and we've got a great show for you this month.
That's right, Pete. Coming up later on the show, we'll catch up with author and raconteur Maggie Sydenham.
And we'll be talking about how the upcoming federal election will affect older Australians. Later on, we'll be catching up on the big news stories this month. And our Good Life chef, Ben, will be whipping up a mushroom, grilled chicken and leek risotto.
Yum. But first up this month, Pete headed to the Bally's Patch Community Garden to meet a group of volunteers that have turned a once empty plot of land into something very special.
Once upon a time, on the New South Wales south coast, nestled close to the Illawarra Escarpment, was the sleepy village of Balgownie. And in that village was a little block of land that no one was using. That was until the villagers, with the support of the Balgownie Village Community Centre, got together to create Bally's Patch, a community garden. 2 years later, that little block has become a flourishing space with a young food forest happily growing beside communal beds of vegetables, flowers and herbs. It's a place where all are welcome, no matter your age, culture or ability, to come together, forge friendships, learn and educate. I'm here with Rebecca, the coordinator of Bally's Patch, and some of the members described you as the visionary princess, Rebecca. So you got all this started, did you?
I don't know that I'm a visionary princess, but I am lucky enough to live right next door.
Yeah.
And when we bought our house, I had a lot of neighbours just asking me if we own this property, which we don't. But it did prompt me to give a call to council and see what was going on with this site. However, at the time that I called council, conveniently, it had just been classed as community land for community purposes. So I said, well, what does that mean? And they said to me, you could put a playground on it, you could put a garden on it. And I said, that'd be great to put a community garden on it. I have a personal passion for gardening, so that kind of, it just all started from there.
So how does a community garden like this actually work? I mean, how does it all come together?
Yeah, well, we're still developing, so we're still making up rules as we're going along. What often happens is on working bee days, like you can see everyone working here, we cut vegetables up and distribute them on that day. If people live close, they can come over and pick herbs anytime they want to.
Oh, can they?
All we ask is that people contribute a bit of time to the garden.
Yeah.
If some stranger walks past and picks a bunch of parsley, we're not going to prosecute them. I mean, you know, this is what it's about. It's about the community.
I can see this morning there's all sorts of people here. There's from little kids through to the more elderly members of the community. So what benefits do you think all members get out of being in the club?
Well, one of the obvious things is that with it's now growing some produce, you know, people are getting some access to this produce. You know, we've got herbs growing, we've got fruit trees around in our forest, but they're still to yield fruit.
Yeah.
But we had pumpkins, and for example, we were able to take some of those pumpkins, cut those up, and we sold them up at our market day here at the Village Community Centre yesterday.
And apart from the produce, what are the benefits to the individual people who join the club?
Meeting other people, that's what everyone seems to say. Gee, I didn't know you lived here.
Yeah.
So meeting people, a bit of camaraderie, good fresh air, which is really nice. We've been very fortunate with the weather. We've never been washed out on a working bee day. Bit of manual labour, which is always good when you're,
I was going to say,
especially when you're retired.
Getting down on your hands and knees.
Yeah,
and,
getting dirty and all that.
Absolutely, that's very important. Love it. So what advice would you give to someone watching the show today who might like to start their own community garden, Rebecca?
Go for it.
Yeah.
I don't think you need a place where there's an amazing community to start with. I think that's what you're trying to build.
Yeah.
You need a few people on your side to help you get through the logistical process. I think you should call your local council. I think you should have chats with your local neighbours, people in the area, other schools, to see if there's other people who can help you get through it. But I really think you just need to start the process. Don't think about it too much, just do it.
If you want to learn more about Bally's Patch, you can head to ballyspatch.wordpress.com. Or if you want to find the closest community garden to you, go to communitygarden.ballyspatch.com.
I'm here today with Ian Day, the CEO of CODA New South Wales. Thank you very much for joining us, Ian.
Pleasure, Toby. Thanks for inviting me.
No worries. So, we know that we've just had the first federal budget released under the Turnbull government, and we're now heading into the federal election campaign.
Yep.
In that budget, we know that there are a few cuts to the aged care sector. How do you think that those cuts will affect older Australians?
Certainly our early advice from the providers in particular is that the cuts are not minor, they're major. And a number of those providers are concerned about their ability to survive in the longer term. We are talking about over $1 billion worth of cuts. The concern I have is that those cuts seem to be aimed at the high care or the complicated and the complicated end of the scale, and that worries us because more and more people are going into residential aged care with far higher needs than they used to in the past. So what's happening is these people will have less ability or less opportunity for the services that they require.
We've got $102 million going to help providers in rural and remote areas, $136 million going to the My Aged Care Contact Centre rollout, $10 million for unannounced compliance site visits. So that's about $250 million or $248 million of a $1.2 billion savings. Where's the rest to help older Australians, or what else do you think, or does CODA New South Wales think we could be doing better?
Yeah, well, I think obviously the answer to your first part of the question is the over $1 billion that's been saved is not being ploughed back into aged care. Some of it might be, but there is a lot of money going back to consolidated revenue. Are there areas that actually need specific improvement in aged care? Absolutely. And I think one of the critical ones is the level of awareness that the consumers have, the patients, the residents, those people that are receiving care, the lack of knowledge they have about what's available and about how the system works. And there is a real need for a consumer-based or an improvement in the consumer-based level of education and understanding of what aged care is all about. Research that we've done would show that the My Aged Care website is probably the most difficult and confusing website, government website in Australia.
Before the election campaign was announced, and now that it has been announced, we've heard lots of comments about tinkering with superannuation, and we've heard comments about tinkering with pension and tinkering with, tax thresholds and housing policies, which each seem to be, I guess, paying a token level of respect to what these sources of income mean for older Australians.
Yep.
In your view and the view of CODA New South Wales, what should be done to improve the standing of?
Well, I think it's important. You've used the word tinkering, and it's a word I totally agree with, because it has been a little bit of this and a little bit of that. In the first instance, if we're going to look at incomes in retirement, we need to look at the full gamut. And we need to look at pensions, we need to look at superannuation, we need to look at tax benefits and tax incentives, we need to look at the family home, which is part of it, etc. All those things need to be looked at in total. We also need to look at the issue of the age where you get access to the age pension. Great idea that everybody should be working to 70, and I put my hands up and say, yes, I'd like to be working to 70. But what happened to the guy who was laid off at 55 and because of age discrimination will never get a job? He has no access to anything other than Newstart for the next 20 years or 15 years. By the time he reaches a time when he can actually access the age pension, he's had to sell down his house, he's had to access any superannuation he had, he's basically broke. So we've got an assumption that people will work to 70, but there is no consideration that there's actually jobs for people that want to work to 70. So we need to be working at that level as well. So coming back to the issue of income in retirement, given that there is jobs available up to 70, after that time, how do all the things interact, rather than just tinkering with super and just tinkering with tax incentives, etc., etc.
Next up this month, we sat down with Jill of all trades, Maggie Sydenham, to talk about public speaking, self-publishing her first book, and her constant struggle to beat boredom.
Maggie Sydenham has been many things in life, and that is not an exaggeration. By her own count, she has had well over 60 interesting jobs in her working life. Today, she is an accomplished public speaker and author. We sat down with Maggie after a speech to a local view club to ask her about how she beats boredom, and most importantly, what's next.
I've got an overweening confidence in my own ability. I don't know why. It's just that I can remember when I was married to my husband, I didn't like boring jobs, and I always wanted to get really interesting, unusual jobs. And he said to me once, "Why can't you get an ordinary job like any other ordinary woman?" Well, you know my answer to that, and that didn't endear me to him at all. I'm not ordinary. They ranged from half a day, that was selling studio portraits door to door. Half a day was enough of that, to 8 years. So there were a lot of 4, 5 and 6 month jobs in that over my 45-year working career. I was working in the arts as a director of the arts, in a department of sports, in a Conservative government, and I found that complaining never got anywhere. I am a visual artist. I do painting, drawing, I've done murals, and now I do these, and I do quick portraits as well. So I used to send memos, and they were always funny letters with a cartoon. And it's amazing what good results I got from that, because I made people laugh. And so I've kept up with the cartooning. I'd advise anyone, if they want to write a book, to just go ahead and write it. Because as I always like to say, the most remarkable thing about my book is actually that I finished it. Because I've always had these wonderful projects in mind, and I've been gonna do this and gonna do that and never finished. I've actually written and published a book. Just after I had a serious operation a few years ago, I decided that I wanted to get fit and to get out more, because I was very grouchy and reclusive, and I decided to join Toastmasters. That was about 4.5 years ago. And since I joined Toastmasters, I've made almost 150 speeches. This is probably about my 151st that I've just done now. I've just received the highest personal educational award in Toastmasters, which is the Distinguished Toastmasters Award. So that's sort of the pinnacle in Toastmasters. So I need another challenge. So I've applied to the University of Wollongong to do a Bachelor of Arts degree, majoring in philosophy. I did one unit, a university degree unit, when I was living in Darwin with my husband and 2 children, and I loved it. I really loved that study and seeking after knowledge. I started reading books by this Norman Doidge, The Brain That Changes Itself, that you can actually improve in old age. You can improve your brain. I don't think I'll ever stop learning until the day I die. And I'd advise anyone, the best thing that they can do is learn something that they never expected. If you're lousy at maths at school, learn maths. If you say you can't draw a straight line, go to life drawing classes. You always have to stretch your capabilities and your brain. And it does, it works. I'm sure that I'm much more with it, and I think smarter now than I was 10 years ago. In fact, I never want to go back to 60 again. I'm really enjoying my 70s.
And now we look at the big news stories affecting older Australians this month. We are halfway through the Australian government's gruelling 55-day election campaign, with the July 2nd finish line firmly in sight. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull is placing jobs, growth and economic management at the heart of his re-election pitch. Opposition leader Bill Shorten has hit back, promising to protect schools, hospitals, workers' pay and conditions, and to act on climate change. For Aussie seniors, several key issues are continuing to define the campaign, including super, Medicare and housing affordability. The Australian Women's Weekly Children's Birthday Cake book holds a special place in many of our hearts. From the jelly-filled swimming pool to the popcorn train, birthday cakes from the book have wowed Australian children for almost 4 decades. Last month, all 107 cakes from the cookbook went on display in Canberra in a bid to raise money for Pansy, a local post and antenatal depression support service. More than 1,500 people came to see the nostalgic display baked by volunteers, with all the cakes going to auction and raising more than $9,000. And finally, 713 million. That's how many hours Australians spend volunteering each year. National Volunteer Week was celebrated in early May to acknowledge the generous contribution of over 6 million Australians who volunteer their time. With the theme, Give Happy, Live Happy, the event aims to celebrate and explore the research that shows volunteers live happier and healthier lives.
Well, we're back in the Good Life kitchen and we have our Good Life chef Ben back again.
How are you, Peter?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for coming back.
Not a problem.
Now, I'm excited about today because I think you were going to prepare something today that I actively avoid.
You told me that earlier, yes.
So I'm looking forward to seeing how you do this and perhaps having a crack at it back at home myself.
Well, I think you'll enjoy this one.
Okay.
Well, today I've got a grilled chicken and mushroom and leek risotto. A very simple dish to make, a variety of ingredients, which you can probably see in front of you, which might look a bit daunting, but is actually very simple to put together.
Mm-hmm. That's what we want to keep it simple. All right, what's first?
Let's go. We'll get the pan hot. So we'll just start with a little bit of butter. Okay, we'll just melt that down. Okay. Now, with risotto, it's basically all in one pot. So the beauty of it is, again, it's all in one pot. All the flavours just combine over the cooking period and just meld together. And it takes about 20-25 minutes from beginning to end to finish your risotto.
I love the idea of everything being in one pot.
It's very simple. So I've also got some stock over here, which I've just made earlier on. So it's nice hot stock, and we'll be using that throughout our cooking. So,
is that chicken stock?
Yes, it's just simple chicken stock. Now you can either make it yourself, you can buy the chicken stocks from the shop, whichever you prefer.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So while we've got the butter going, now I can just throw some onions in. Okay. Get the garlic, and I'll crush the garlic.
We don't do many meals without garlic, do we?
I like garlic.
So do I.
I was brought up with garlic. And I think I've continued that on into my adulthood.
Yes, and
Okay.
pass it on to your own children.
Well, yes, yes. So, and I've got a little bit of thyme here, so some fresh chopped thyme. And I think that just livens up the risotto. It just adds that little bit of different character risotto and a little bit of chilli. Okay.
Got to have the chilli.
So while we're doing all this, so we'll just get all the ingredients, and as the butter warms up, it'll just soften the onions. Okay, and we'll give that about a minute or two. So we've got the onions going, so Peter, now it's time to add the leeks.
Yes.
Soften the leeks up. So these also just impart that nice sweetness to the dish. Okay, and while we're doing that, I'll get you to grill some chicken. So
with pleasure.
Turn on a burner there with the chicken here.
Mm-hmm.
Now with our chicken, just a little bit of seasoning and not too much oil. We just want a little bit of oil just to start it off. So, and some salt and pepper. So I'll get you to look after that.
No
So when
worries.
that pan gets hot, Pete,
Yep.
just whack that on and get it going.
Okay.
So,
These are chicken thigh fillets.
chicken thigh fillets, skin off.
Yep, my favourite part of the chicken, I have to say.
It is a bit juicier than the breast, but you can use breast just as effectively.
Yep. How's that?
So there you go, perfect. At this point, I'll add some white wine. Okay, just a little bit. And I'll add my rice. Okay. So, as we stir that in, we want the rice to be coated with the butter. Now this is the stock, okay? So as we add our stock, we do gradually, okay? So a little bit of time and we let the rice absorb the stock, okay? And at this point, we'll just bring it up to the bubble. Give it a bit of a stir.
Are you going to use all that stock?
Pretty much,
Yeah.
pretty much. So And this is where we just turn
So
it
that
down.
rice is absorbing, as we talk now, that rice is absorbing the wine, the juices from the pan, and the chicken stock.
That's correct, yeah. So I've got a number of things now we're about to add. So in order, pumpkin's a bit firmer than peas, so we add that earlier. So at this point, I'm just going to add some pumpkin. So with the mushrooms as well, it then adds that earthy flavour to it. So at this point, I'll be adding some mushrooms, and I've got 4 varieties of mushrooms here. So I've got some shiitake, some Swiss brown, some enoki mushroom, and some oyster mushroom. So you can add any mushroom. If you can only get button mushrooms, add your button mushrooms. But I've got a variety. It'll give us some texture and a different look in the dish.
And so each of those mushrooms have a slightly different flavour?
They do, they do.
Nice.
And they all mix together nicely, so. And I want some of that mushroom flavour to come out as all this is cooking out. A little bit more stock.
Right. You wouldn't add any more white wine at this stage, would you?
No, no, that's
so
it.
the rest of that white wine's for drinking, is it?
That's for you, Peter. That's for you. All right, so Peter, the stock's being absorbed slowly by the rice.
Yep.
So, and we've got our pumpkin in there and our mushrooms. So now it's time to just add our peas. So, again, adding another dimension in the flavour and the texture and the look. All right, we'll just grab the chicken now, Peter, and we'll slice that up and get that into the risotto. Just basically just a nice slice.
Fairly thinly sliced.
Yeah, enough for everyone to have a bit of chicken.
Yeah. And it's beautifully moist too.
There you go. So you can see that coming.
Very nicely cooked, if I don't say so myself.
You've done a great job. You've outdone yourself. Now it's time to finish off our risotto. So there's a couple of things we use. A bit of Parmesan cheese.
Love it.
Okay, and people are going to hate me, but a little bit more butter just to finish off.
I won't hate you.
Okay. So that's all ready to go. One last thing before we finish up. I've got some parsley here. Nice fresh parsley. Really rustic. Just chop it up. Get it in there.
Mixed in?
Yep. Mix it in. And you can smell that freshness.
Oh, you certainly can.
Okay. And we're ready to go. So
Right,
if you
what do
grab
we
the
need?
plate. You see the stock in there?
Yeah.
It's not dry. It's a nice moist dish.
And it looks unbelievably healthy.
There you go. So a little bit more Parmesan for the top.
Yeah, I like that.
Very
that.
simple. Grilled chicken and leek risotto.
There's only one thing left to do.
I knew you were going to say it. Let's get stuck into it.
We get a bit of mushroom.
I might follow suit, mate.
That is just so full of flavour.
And you can see it's not dry. Nice
No.
bit of liquid in there, bit of stock. The flavours are all there, all the colours,
Yep, absolutely.
all the healthiness of the
Absolutely
vegetables.
delicious.
Beautiful.
Healthy. That is a wonderful meal. And look how much we've got. As you said, 400 grams of rice, is that
That's
what it was?
correct.
Hardly anything. Simple ingredients. Took 20 minutes to cook.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, I think you've done it again, Ben. Well done, mate.
Not a problem.
Thanks very much.
My pleasure, Peter.
See you next time.
That's our show for this month. Our thanks to everyone involved for sharing their expertise and stories.
The next episode of The Good Life will be available in early July. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. I'm Pete Gatwood.
And I'm Gwen Wilson. And we'll see you next time on The Good Life.